y'all today?
Yes.
Are you okay right
Okay.
there?
Okay. My name is Monica. I'm his intern.
Oh, hi, Monica. I'm Raquel.
And you're Raquel?
Juan.
Juan?
Cindy?
Cindy, nice to meet you guys.
Nice
Sorry.
to meet you.
I know Hector for the night, because I usually come at night. Is that your wife?
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle. Yeah, nice to meet you too. I come in the night because I work in the day.
Yep.
So then I come on Saturdays.
We've heard about you.
Yeah, I had appendicitis, so I have to be out for a couple of weeks.
Oh, wow. Holy smokes.
Oh, I'm good to go.
Good.
That's good.
Well, that's good.
You're Army strong.
That's right. Ugh. Yeah, I'm a vet too, so.
Nice, nice. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. Let me go get on.
But,
You know I'm messing.
I know. Colorful shoes,
Nice. We're
This is the
sneakerheads.
shoe expert back there.
We're sneakerheads too. We like to just get different stuff.
Not we, don't be trying to throw me in your
Yeah,
pocket.
he is too. He just doesn't know it. He has a sneaker for every outfit.
Nice.
Probably not the other day.
He does, right?
Anyway, good morning, glad to see all of you here that's here with this thing on. And, I believe, sir, you're the only person here for the first time, so I'll ask you the first question. What do you expect or hope to gain out of hanging out with us today?
Wow, it's a deep question. I should prepare it.
This is all right to say nothing, no, I don't know.
I'd say I don't know, but also maybe a better understanding of like situation. I'll tell you what though. So I look up there and I say addiction in the family. I kind of feel by myself. I feel very alone. Like I feel like I'm the only person in the world that's going through like trying to figure out what's going on in her life. And
One of the things
her head.
that we hope to help people understand, especially family members and friends and supportive people, is you're not alone. There are, as I like to say all the time, this is just me, Smitty, taking a wild guess, said every person in this city knows somebody with an addiction. They just don't talk about it. Or they don't want to admit it. So, this morning's opening topic today is something that I believe covers just about any relationship, addiction in the family. I subtitled this, "We All Got Here by Accident." And for those of you who've never heard me say that before, what I mean when I say that is every person I know with a substance abuse problem, whether it's alcohol, drugs, prescription drugs, whatever, street drugs. Nobody woke up one day when they was 8, 9, 10 years old and said, my goal in life is to have a substance abuse problem. I ain't met that person yet. I've been doing this for 30 plus years, plus I was an active addict and alcoholic for 20-something years. So been around this a long time. But I also know I never met a family member or friend who says, well, my goal in life was to be involved with a person with a substance abuse problem. We all got here by accident. But now that you're here, we can all get better together. But in order to understand how we can get better together, I think family members and friends also need to understand how their lives may have been impacted by the other person's alcoholic drug use. See, it's easy to talk about, yeah, they really pissed me off when they did this or that, they scared me when they did that, But what we're going to talk about today is other ways that you have been impacted As you can see up here on my board, this side should say powerless, and this side right up there once I start the video. This side says unmanageability. These are things that family members and friends experience, and maybe you don't even recognize it, or maybe you don't even use the same words that I use. But the only thing I ask is you be honest enough in your mind. You don't have to say it in here. You say, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, I've tried some of these things. So, we're going to start this morning off with a video called Addiction in the Family, the Domino Effect. And the reason it's called the Domino Effect is because just like if you ever line up, I'm quite sure if you've never done it yourself, you've seen those things, people line up dominoes in a row and push down one. It's the same thing with family members and friends when it comes to addiction. As I probably say at least one, so please be careful when you're out there. And of course, when you live with my wife, oh God, I get home last night, she's up there watching some special news report on the COVID back. Then she wants me to listen to her recite all these things back to me. I'm like, it's like, what do you think I do every day? But we weren't ready to start yet. One of the other things about this is I'm technology challenged. Oh shoot, I didn't spell a word wrong. And you're a school teacher, you're supposed to catch that.
I told Hector about it.
You can tell me, I don't take it.
He's polite.
So, the ladies presenting this conference is Dr. Claudia Bright. You see, she got all kind of letters and stuff behind her name. But she's a internationally recognized expert on addiction, codependency, family issues. So as you listen to her do a presentation, she's going to ask some of the same questions I'm about to ask you now. It says, as you go through your life dealing with this person with the substance abuse problem, do you sometimes feel numb inside? You sometimes feel afraid or scared because you don't know what's going to happen next. You sometimes feel afraid of your own feelings because you don't know if these feelings are real or not, or if you're just feeling this because of his or her actions. Do you tolerate inappropriate behavior from them just to keep the noise down? Do you find it difficult to ask for help? Or you don't know who to ask for help? Do you have difficulty trusting other people? Or even trusting yourself? Because this person that you care the most about, you don't know if you can trust them or not. Do you often feel lost in the middle of your own life? Do you often feel like you're rushing through your life instead of enjoying your life? Because you're trying to get home and you're trying to make sure that they're all right. If you answered yes to 3 or more of those questions, you're probably dealing with somebody with a substance abuse problem. But that's okay. We'll talk about that later. Back to today's movie.
Lives, and he likes to take care of the other kids in group. And he's told me how much he takes care of his younger brother and sisters, particularly when his parents are out. As accommodating as Jason is at home, his picture reflects his awareness of the problem and the pain within the family. He says alcohol and drugs are like dominoes. They knock down the person who knocks down everyone else, including themselves. While alcohol and drugs take an incredible toll on the abuser, they also take an incredible toll on the family. To live with addiction, that means that you probably have had a gamut of feelings that range from anger to rage to helplessness. After all, you have lived with Jekyll and Hyde personality changes, sneaky behavior, lying, broken promises, possibly even violence. Some of you have lived with great financial stress, and many of you are holding on to shameful family secrets. For many of you, it's become a way of life because addiction runs in the family. It's very common to discover that a chemically dependent person was raised in an addictive home. But oftentimes we find that husbands and wives, the significant others, also grew up with addiction. If you're a parent who has a child who is addicted, it sometimes gets really confusing when you may not be a substance abuser, but one of your parents was, to see addiction rear its ugly head in your family. It is not the least bit uncommon to see addiction skip a generation. Whatever your past experience has been, though, as family members today, you're most likely frustrated and possibly very angry. And yet, if you're viewing this video, it is likely that the addicted person is in some type of treatment, so your feelings may be mixed with a guarded sense of hope. Your very presence here is reason to be hopeful. You are a part of breaking the cycle of addiction. To live with addiction in the family typically means that you've lived for months and maybe even years with fear. If you're the parent of an addicted child, it's common to feel incredible guilt. As a family member, we have been hurt, we are lonely, and for some of us, we only know despair. Andrea's picture reflects that despair. Andrea is 11. Her mother's alcoholic. She's a serious young girl. She questions me a lot. She's not very trusting, but she does find it safe to draw pictures. And Andrea's picture will reflect the despair that I think so many family members feel. She says, love is caring enough to help, but sometimes it runs out, and there's no more love left in her bottle of love. The consequences. The consequences to living with addiction are many. Give yourself time to think about these questions. Do you feel numb, as if your feelings are frozen? Are you frightened of your feelings and the feelings of others? Do you tolerate inappropriate behavior, hurtful behavior? Do you have difficulty asking for help? It might not even dawn on you that you could use help. Do you have difficulty trusting others? Do you have difficulty trusting yourself? Do you find yourself taking care of everybody else's needs, forgetting about your own needs along the way? Are you rushing through life? Do you attempt to fill your fears and maybe your emptiness with alcohol, drugs, relationships, or work? The ultimate consequence, though, is that life becomes controlled by somebody else's addiction. Again, the ultimate consequence is that life becomes controlled by somebody else's addiction. One of the most important messages that you need to truly grasp is that you are powerless over anyone's addiction. Because without grasping that concept, you're going to stay controlled by the disease. I'd like to help you begin the process of family recovery by addressing the issues of powerlessness, unmanageability, and tough love. Now, we know that the bottom line of recovery for the chemically dependent person is their need to accept that they are genuinely powerless over the use of mind-changing chemicals. Recovery for the family begins with their acceptance that they are powerless over the alcoholic addict's use of alcohol and drugs. Now that means that you need to come to terms in your heart that no amount of controlling, begging, pleading, or manipulating will keep them clean and sober. To truly know in your heart and soul that their usage and their behavior is not about you, it is about them and their disease. Now, for some of you to think of yourself as powerless can feel like a slap in the face. And others of you have only felt powerless, overcome with helplessness for a very long time. Don't get confused about the language here. Powerlessness is not defeat. When I say that you need to recognize that you are powerless, I am not suggesting that you would jeopardize the financial, physical, or spiritual safety of the family. You may be powerless over the disease, but that doesn't mean that you allow the grocery money to be taken and used for drugs, or that you would tell lies for the addicted person, or that you sell the car to bail them out of jail, or that you sign for a home equity loan for them to be able to pay off their debts. In the past, you've attempted to control the addicted person's behavior and usage, and that has ended in failure. It may be easier to understand powerlessness by showing examples of some of the controlling behaviors that you may have used. Have you found yourself doing any of these? Using the silent treatment. Lying to your spouse, other children, the employer, friends, relatives about what it is that's occurring. Making threats from which you later back down. Adjusting, rearranging your schedule in some way to be able to control the dependent's use. Or canceling trips, vacations, holidays to care or to watch over the addicted person, or simply not to go places to be able to control or watch over the situation. Assuming responsibilities that are the responsibility of the addicted person. Hiding or dumping the alcohol or stash. Doing a geographic, forbidding contact with certain friends, and then when that doesn't work, often moving miles away to a different community in an attempt to separate the addict from friends. Lecturing, nagging, preaching, begging, bribing, accusing, whining. Avoiding uncomfortable issues. Doing what you need to do to not rock the boat. Pretending that there are no problems. A little girl one time said to me, in our house, we pretend things are different than how they really are. My question is, in your house, do you pretend things are different than how they really are? Do you minimize? Do you discount? Do you rationalize? Please know that all of these behaviors are an absolutely natural response when you care about somebody who's addicted. Control is very often an attempt to bring order to chaos. I think it's an attempt to bring comfort to pain. But what I hope that you can see is that in spite of your best efforts, the situation just continues to worsen. In addition to recognizing and accepting powerlessness, we also need to own how addiction has made our lives unmanageable. In doing so, we are more apt to be willing to make the changes in our life that will ultimately bring us some kind of peace. Now, what I'm addressing is the first step of Al-Anon. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, I think that word unmanageable is really hard to grasp, particularly when you may be the one person in the family who has worked so hard to keep everything in order. And yet there is a price that you are paying. Are you experiencing loss of sleep? Lying awake waiting for them to come home? Headaches, oftentimes stress-induced. Stomach problems. The stomach's in a constant knot. Weight change. It could be a gain, it may be a loss. Eating may be a source of comfort, or you might be eating in anger, or maybe you're not eating because of nervousness or anger. Anger. You know, you may have resorted to uncontrollable anger at times, or maybe even rage. Maybe you have said or done something that you absolutely cannot believe that you did. Silent rage. Now that is the anger and the rage that is felt, but it's never spoken out loud. Excessive crying. Finding yourself crying frequently and not knowing why. Isolation. You're avoiding family, friends. The job is impacted. Your performance or your attendance is impaired. Martyrdom. Martyrdom is when you're willing to take the brunt of the shame and the repercussions for the addict's behavior. An inability inability to focus attention, total preoccupation, so focused on what they're doing or not doing that you're not attending well to your own responsibilities. Destructive behavior, going on a shopping spree that you can't afford, having an affair, physically abusing yourself or somebody else, maybe destroying property, abusing alcohol or drugs yourself. I'll show you how loaded I can get. You know, I don't need to be responsible either. Lastly, depression, the ongoing sense of helplessness, sorrow, and hopelessness. When addiction begins to pervade your life, your behavior can change so gradually that you may not even notice it. And pretty soon it's as if you're a whole different person than what you ever remember being. You feel, you think, and you act in ways that do not feel good. Now, remember that whatever your behavior, you don't need to beat yourself up about the past. Today, you have a fresh start. Here is an opportunity now to discuss ways that you've attempted to control, how that has not worked, and your areas of unmanageability.
This is called an interactive opportunity. I think that sounds so therapeutic. As Dr. Black was going through these things, she asked some of those same questions that I asked before we started this. Now let's look at some examples of powerlessness and manageability. People in recovery, people who've been involved in 12-step communities, they recognize these words from the 12 steps of recovery. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and drugs, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Family members and friends experience powerlessness, but they just experience it differently. Some of the ways of powerlessness is the silent treatment. I'll show you how angry or upset I am. I'm not going to speak to you for 2 or 3 days. As you can see, I put that in the big no-no box. I'll explain why in a little bit. Hiding and dumping. You find this stash, you find them bought some more beer, some more drugs, and you decide to go dump it out or flush it down the student. Okay. Geographic cures. Geographic cures is no more when you decide that it's the bad influence of other people. I need to get him or her out of this neighborhood, out of this environment. Sometimes geographic cues can be moving from one side of town to the other. Sometimes geographic cues can be moving out of town. Sometimes geographic cues can be moving across country still. Lecturing. Now this is a female specialty, lecturing. Because you ladies love to get up there and get that finger wagging and stuff, man. Make all these great speeches and stuff. Lying. Now the reason I call these the big no-nos is because none of these work. See, back when I was drinking and drugging, my wife said, I'm so mad at you, I'm not going to speak for you for 3 or 4 days. I'm like, good. And I can get as messed up as I want. You ain't talking to me, they ain't got to talk to you. Now, of course, because she is a woman, after a day or so, he's going, and by the way, stop, hold up. You said 3 days, I got 2 more. Don't talk to me.
Don't say that, right, Sue?
That's a no-no. Hiding or dumping. Pouring out the drugs or the alcohol. First thing I always tell people about hiding, you can't hide nothing from addict or alcoholic. Because any place that you think is a good hiding place is some place they stopped using 3 or 4 months ago. Pouring it out, why? Only thing you're doing is throwing away money. Because the only thing they're going to do is go buy some more.
Yep.
Geographical cues. Moving across town or out of town, across country. You know, I had a patient a few years back. He was the son of a prominent attorney here. And he had a substance abuse problem and all this stuff. his parents decided that the best thing to do was to make him go stay on their ranch they had out there by Comfort or somewhere out west, right? Cause you know, he can't get high out there on the ranch. And so that weekend they went out looking for him and the ranch foreman. I guess you got to have money to have a foreman on the ranch. And they couldn't find him. So when they finally tracked him down, well, the foreman and the son were sitting in the barn smoking dope. No matter where you go. See, even here in Texas, they have these so-called dry counties.
Yes.
My son went to law school and grad school out at Texas Tech. Lubbock is so-called dry county or dry city or something. But here's the thing, if you ever been to Lubbock, anybody ever took that ride, you know that's a long, thirsty ride. But just before you get to cross the line, the county line or the city line, there's a place called Pinky's. Pinky's is just a large liquor store. It's almost like a welcome to Lubbock sign. See, because even though it's a dry county, you can stop at Pinky's and buy all the booze and stuff you want and just drive it into the city. They say you can't sell it in the city. They didn't say you couldn't drink it in the city. You just can't buy it in the city. The other thing about Lubbock, and I don't know, I've never been to, I guess I've been to other dry counties. They don't let you sell hard liquor in this county or the city, but you can buy all the beer and wine you want. So geographic cures don't work. I tell people all the time, during my 23 years in the Army, I had the opportunity to go to 17 different countries. There's not a country in this world that I ever stepped foot on that I wasn't high or drunk within 24 hours after getting off that plane. And I didn't get off the plane with no signs, say, hey, can somebody get me high? Actually, alcoholics, we just spot each other. We just know. I tell people all the time now, I can walk through North Star Mall or Ingram Mall this afternoon and just point out people and say, yep, that's one of us right there. My wife gets upset. Why are you always messing with people? I say, I ain't messing with people. I'm just showing you stuff. Oh, here's another Smitty observation. I don't know if you even know this. I was out at North Star last week buying a Lego set for a friend of mine. Young lady who gave me that doll back then. Legos cost you nowadays.
Very pricey.
Oh yeah, this one cost me almost $200.
Yeah.
But since I like her, she's worth it. But anyway, so I'm walking back to the thing, and there's a little bar right there where you turn down. And when we went by, I thought it was a
Really?
coffee thing.
Oh, a coffee shop.
It's a beer thing. You can walk up there and buy a glass of beer.
While you're shopping.
They got a couple of tables there, but if you got a line there, everybody can't sit at them 2 or 3 tables, especially under the COVID restrictions. So I'm thinking, you can just walk through North Star Mall now, sip a cold. Damn, they didn't have stuff like that when I was there. I grew up to go soon.
You would have took Slick shopping more often, wouldn't you?
Trust me, back in the day. Yeah, it was more expensive to take us shopping then, because back then we had to take Michael, and Michael was the one that cost you money. It wasn't Slim. Lecturing, like I say, this is a woman special. Y'all like get out and get that finger wagging and stuff. Right? And then see, here's the bad part about these lectures. We usually give our best speeches to people under the influence or hungover. And then the next day when you talk, say, remember what we talked about yesterday? You know what they're going to say, huh, me? What? What are you talking about? I don't remember you talking to me. And then you stand there going, what in the world? Am I losing it? The last on the list of the big no-nos is making threats. Lying. If you lying for them, then they ain't got to lie. Some common forms of lie is calling their boss and telling them they can't come to work because they sick. No, they can't come to work because A, either they hungover or B, you don't know where they are. But believe me, other forms of powerlessness, adjusting your schedule, canceling family activities and stuff, because you don't want to take little Johnny and little Mary out in the public because you don't know how they're going to act. Or you don't want to schedule that because you don't know what condition they're going to be in that particular day. Assuming their responsibilities. Doing stuff that you expect them to do, but then you think, well, if I do it for them, then that'd be less. Because we always say, they got a lot of stress on this. See, a lot of times couples have a lot of responsibilities we don't even know about because nobody ever wrote them down. Like my wife always tells me, don't forget it's the trash day, it's your job to take out the trash. What's wrong with your hands? How come you can't take out the trash? All you gotta do is roll it down to it. It ain't like it's like something you gotta pick up and tote. Just roll it down to the curb. That's your job. See, then I tell her, I say, show me somewhere in the book of life where it says it's the man's job to take out the trash. Right? So a lot of times we get assigned stuff or we just say this is what you're responsible. But then when we deal with addicts and alcoholics, we'll say, well, maybe I'll take a little stress off them. I'll do it. Pretending. Family members and friends can become great pretenders. We like to pretend ain't nothing wrong. We like to pretend that everything's all right. As I always tell people, some of the, this is a bad word, but this is the only way I think. Some of the worst families look great when they walk out their front door. We know how to pretend like our shit don't stink when we walk out the front door. But as I always tell people, nobody knows what happens when the garage door comes down and the front door is closed, except those people in their house. And see, one of the great things about, well, not great things, one of the bad things about addiction in the family, without even saying it, we all learn to protect the family secret. We can't let people know what's going on. Now, the other part of this is unmanageability. I think examples of unmanageability are worse than any of these powerless things because these are ways that people are physically attacked, for lack of a better word, by somebody else's substance use. Headaches, migraine headaches, stress-related